Olá, este é o Campo Diplomático, um espaço para falar das relações entre o Brasil e o mundo. Eu tenho a honra de receber o embaixador da Itália, Francesco Azzarello, que já tem uma trajetória longa na carreira diplomática. Formado em economia, o diplomata de carreira iniciou sua jornada responsável de controle de armamentos na Direção-Geral para Assuntos Políticos ainda na Itália, já serviu na Albânia, no Irã e foi embaixador na Holanda, como também na missão permanente da Itália junto às Nações Unidas em Nova York. Embaixador, muito obrigado pela sua presença, a sua segunda vez aqui no AgroMais. Thank you so much.
Obrigado a você, grande prazer ser de novo aqui.
Ótimo, ótimo. Well, we'll start our interview in English. And you've been here before and we spoke very well about the relations between the two countries, but now we would like to know a little bit about what's happening today between these two countries and their relations. And I'd like to start out with talking about the AgriShow fair that took place recently, now in 2022, one of the largest agricultural fairs in Latin America. And I would like to know your impressions. You were there, correct?
Yes, I thank you very much. Ribeirão Preto, for the first time I was in Ribeirão Preto for the occasion of the opening of the fair. I discovered that actually this fair, that I also knew is the biggest of Latin America, apparently uncovered, scoperta, is the first in the world and the third in the world covered. So I work for relations between Italy and Brazil, so I always try to promote good things coming from Brazil, and there are many that come. The fair was very impressive, huge, very well organized, very big opening politically. And we had an Italian pavilion, the biggest of this type that was ever organized by our Italian Trade Commission, with 18 Italian companies, technology and machinery. And out of the pavilion, we had other three that were Stellantis, that is a merger between Fiat, FCA, Peugeot, even if in Brazil Stellantis is 90% Fiat, and CNH Industrial and the New Holland that are also. Nowadays, properties are it's difficult to understand because you have them on the stock exchange, funds that buy and so on. But this, we think they are at least also Italian companies. So very interesting. The Italian companies were, I think, very satisfied of how things went. I read an article a few days after the end of the fair saying that AgriShow was had a huge volume of exchanges, of negotiations. And I also know, that I don't want to keep all the time for me, I also know that Brazil is autosufficient in all what is technology and machinery for big extensions. I mean, Brazil is a continent. But it needs to update all its medium, small enterprise machinery and technology.
Fair enough, fair enough.
And that's where Italy can be complementary.
Very much so. And Italy exports a lot of its technology. It produces a lot of its technology in cooperation, correct? And what are the opportunities, would you say, for medium, small-sized enterprises with cooperation and what Italy can offer in this sector?
Thank you. Italy is the fourth exporter to Brazil in terms of machinery and technology. In Italy, agriculture has, relatively speaking, compared with the dimensions of Brazil, has the same importance as agriculture has in Brazil. So we are a big agricultural country, a big industry, transformation, honestly, very good in technology. Technology not only in agriculture, but also in other sectors. Italy does a lot of that. The difference between Brazil and Italy is that I think 2/3 of the Italian properties are 5 hectares or less. The other day, the president of the agricultural fair that is going to start next week in the Distrito Federal, that is an Italo-Brazilian. He came to visit me, and he said that he had a small property. I said, well, what does that mean? Because I mean, and he said, well, 300 hectares. So 300 hectares maybe in Brazil are very small, but in Italy are big. So 2/3 are less than 5, and I think 30% are of 1 hectare or less. What does that mean? That the backbone, not only in agriculture, but also in Italy's economy, is made of medium, small enterprises. And this is another aspect of possible complementarities with Brazil.
Fair enough. The proportions are very different. The countries are of different size, but Italy does and always has done an excellent job in developing its let's say, its independence in many of these aspects, including agricultural production for its population, as well as technological development, and even with legislation to foment that family businesses remain family businesses because of these sizes. So I think Italy and Brazil can benefit from this kind of knowledge, correct? Even in regards to policies to foment family enterprises, would you say?
Yes. Italy is very careful to the dimensions and legislation. There is a big movement to update legislations, thinking of getting always more involved women, young people, training them, technology. Technology today has to look at maximizing the usefulness. It's not correct, the words in economic terms, but that's a concept of the land, because every 20 years the Earth, our planet, grows of 1 billion people. So 1 billion people every 20 years, the land is always the same. So let's say that compared, it's always less. So we have to have technology that can help in saving water, good use of good energy, clean energy, and there is always more a view and a consciousness, especially of the younger people. I'm an old one now, and so I see things with more, but the younger ones, there's always more consciousness of, and the consumers, of sustainability, respect of environment, and if I may say, this is obvious, I would say, because getting so big, the population, so much industries, we are destroying the planet, we are destroying the climate. And the danger is that once that you have damages in the climate, get back to a normal situation requires maybe 5, 10, 15 years. But then the climate, what will the climate do? Since we are here in agricultural TV, it will destroy or damage very severely agriculture. If the climate is not good, if the rains are not enough, or if the climate changes. So I think it's in the interest of everybody, producers, politicians, governments, to constructively, there's no need to fight, but to get this awareness, this consciousness, especially in the younger people. That means education. Children, you have to give them, we have to give them our experience, give them consciousness of what preserving the environment means.
Now, looking towards more the international aspect of what's going on in the world, I think one of the biggest challenges we face today are the impacts of the war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's happening, and it has global effects that are obviously affecting food shortages, prices, petrol. And given this scenario, what are the opportunities given that can maybe improve the relations between Brazil and Italy?
We had remember if it was end of March or beginning of April, our deputy foreign minister that has also competencies on trade, investments, and so on. He came to Brazil. He had meetings here. He met with Minister Franz. Minister Franz expressed very clearly the position of Brazil on sanctions, the worry of Brazil on fertilizers. Then I think we all discovered that fertilizers were not under sanctions. Because this is the truth. Everybody thought they were under sanctions, or in any case, there were complications and worries of who was going to buy these fertilizers for any consequences on the American side. The US, we learned informally that the US doesn't consider fertilizers under sanctions. And this is very important because Brazil is a great power in terms of agriculture. I mean, Brazil is one of the three major producers of the world with the US and China, but Brazil is first or second, depending on what cultivation we speak about, exporter in the world with the US. And I think it's in the interest of everybody to have Brazil capacity of producing, of feeding a good portion of the world, also in order to keep prices not going too up. Mm-hmm. And the disponibility of fertilizers, for example, has kept prices not growing too much. Unfortunately, inflation is something that is affecting all the world. This terrible war in the heart of Europe is having consequences in all areas.
Yes. And fertilizers are also, some people discovered in Brazil that we are not autosufficient as well in the production of these fertilizers. So it's becoming also a diplomatic conquest by the part of the foreign ministry, as well as the agricultural ministry, to amplify these fertilizers, given our dependency to Russia and Belarus as well. So we're in a moment where I think relations between all countries have to be reviewed as well. And in this opportunity to improve fertilizer exportation as well as food exportation in our relations. And in this regard, is the EU and Mercosur free trade agreement, which has been in negotiations, both inside Brazil and abroad, an opportunity? Do you think it's an opportunity to be signed for the countries to actually formalize this partnership? And can it give a broader opportunity for our cooperation internationally?
There have been, as everybody knows, environmental concerns, especially in some countries, that have slowed the process. Brazil is ready to negotiate an addendum because nobody wants to open the agreement again on these issues. The European Union needs to reply. I think Brazil is waiting for 2 years for a reply from the European Union. The EU Commissioner for Environment was here the other week, and he met also Minister Lecce in São Paulo, and they discussed about the environmental issues, but obviously also this. EU-Mercosur agreement would be the biggest free trade agreement of the world. It will benefit everybody, every country. Surely there are areas in the economy of people that are not happy because somebody will be affected negatively and some positively. There have been some areas in the agricultural sector in Italy that were not happy about it. But Italy decided that as a package, the EU-Mercosur agreement would be something useful, I would say almost indispensable in the interest of everybody. So trade will increase, everything will get better. As far as Brazil is concerned, Brazil needs in some areas some transformation industry. That's what you lack a little bit. It's not a criticism, it's the newspapers write about it all the time. You were mentioning the fertilizers area. For sure, but you have areas where you can get them. You have to, so you have to create an environment in which, when you open, you meaning anybody, you open, let's say, putting your barriers more or less zero with a 5 years, 10 years lapse of time in order to put it in place. You will not have. You will have an environment that, from an industrial point of view, is ready for the competition. Otherwise, you'll have some errors. So it's a little bit complicated, but I would say that even politically, I would say that politically, EU-Mercosur agreement is fundamental.
I suppose that the discussion also of the OCDE, the Organization for Cooperation, Economic Cooperation and Development, has been speaking of the inclusion of Brazil as well into the organization, which also foments this type of cooperation and growth, correct?
Absolutely. Brazil has asked, it's already a few years, I think in 2015, because before there was no interest in accessing the OECD, to get into it. I think Brazil deserves the position. From my personal point of view, it's fundamental that Brazil is part of OECD. The Italian government fully supports an early accession of this OECD. It's a complicated process with a lot of homework to do. Brazil has done a lot of homework. Maybe it needs to do a little bit more homework on the environmental area. But for Brazil's position, it should be member because it would have rights and duties. And it's always better to be in an organization than outside. And this is in the interest of the countries that are in the OECD, not only of Brazil. So Italy is in favor of a quick accession.
I mean, we're arriving also at the next sustainable conference, the COP27 conference, which will be in Egypt. And being part of an organization in this context as well has its favors. And Brazil is working on improving its sustainability. Do you see that our challenges in the next year, even regardless of elections, as a country, need to focus more on this? Do we need to invest more in these duties?
Let's put it in this way. Brazil has, rightly or wrongly, an image outside that is linked to the Amazon, is linked to the fires. Now the dry season is going to start. We are going to start again with the fires. And there are people that are always ready only to criticize. There are people that don't really care. So it's a question of giving the image of a country that is interested, that does what it can. We have this problem for the moment of the indigenous people, the garimpeiros. I read that at a certain point in history, 40,000 garimpeiros were thrown out of the forests. So there are a lot of difficult and delicate issues, also because 60% of Brazil is forests, if not more. You need a billion people to control the land. And there are other delicate issues of economy, investments, and so on, laws, possibility of using, I would say, in a serious and very delicate and very serious way, some resources of the forests that are useful for the economy of Brazil. So globally speaking, I mean, from this point of view, this is where probably Brazil needs to invest more and to give always more the perception that it is doing something in order to control illegality and so on, even if they are very limited, and then they are amplified. Forests burn, but they burn also and mostly because of the heat. Then maybe there are also people that, but I think that the proportion probably is that the illegalities are very low, but can do a great damage. So, and then let's not forget also, to be honest, intellectually, that Brazil's role in the COP is fundamental. Brazil must be a leader. Brazil is so big, so important, so rich, and must be a leader internationally. But then there are other countries that should do their homework. And they are among the biggest countries of the world, of different areas of the world. I don't mention them, but we all know who they are. So while Brazil is a matter of absorbing, there are other big, huge countries, various, that produce. So, so COP is probably a fundamental forum for discussing, for creating awareness. But there are countries that have, at the last COP, they have had a critical position. They have said, no, we won't do it. We will do it in who knows when. I must say that Minister Lecce and Minister Franza, that work very well together, they have given a very good impression at the COP. So let's hope that Brazil continues on the path of giving the idea to the Western world that the issue is always in front page, and they are looking how to contain it in order to avoid the damages.
And regarding coffee, we know that Italians have a long tradition in making coffee, in importing coffee, roasting and exporting this already prepared coffee, and it's a staple around the world. But Brazil now, we've been improving our plantations, our sustainability, our quality, not only in the Arabica coffee, but also in the other species of coffee. So my question is, what is the room for Brazilian coffee in Italy?
Italy has no coffee. We don't grow coffee. We buy coffee from outside, from various countries. We do the blend. We are probably quite good in doing the blend because Italian coffee is famous as if we were a major producer in the world.
Yes.
And this is the ability of Italians to transform. When I say that agriculture sector, Italy and Brazil are complementary, at least in the medium, small dimensions, technology, that we can build up a lot with Brazil. Also in terms, if I'm allowed to add, the strategy of Italy and of Italian companies, that is a strategy always of medium, long term. It's not a strategy of just selling and running away. It's a strategy of trying to co-produce in Brazil, looking for a Brazilian partner, and allowing transfer of technology. So I think that's the best partnership that we could build. Going back to coffee. So Italy is the fourth market of Brazilian coffee. Strange that Italy is behind, I'll say something that people don't know. For example, between Germany. Germany buys more coffee than Italy. But then even in Italy, coffee, it's differentiated between the north and the south. I'm from the deep south. So for us, the coffee of north of Italy is not exactly what we would like. We like strong coffee, strong feelings, a little bit, I think, like the Brazilians. What is the, and your exports of coffee, they come mostly from Minas. Also Espírito Santo, I've been there, there are producers of coffee. But Minas, I think that one cup of coffee out of 4 in Italy is coffee that comes from Minas. I've been told that Brazil has laws, so if I say something wrong, you'll forgive me, that don't allow you to import other types of coffee. And that means that you don't have the possibility of doing the blending as the Italians do. Having said that, I drink Brazilian coffee here, mocha. I find it excellent. I'm very happy. Once I had some people for lunch at home, at the residence, and they said, we've never drank such good coffee in our life. I think it was the Brazilian coffee. I must admit that I wickedly didn't say if it was Brazilian or Italian, because I have to keep up the image of our country. But I'm saying publicly, I'm giving you the story that I drink Brazilian coffee that is excellent. Now you have this made in Brazil coffee label that is coming up, this special coffee. The special coffee, I think, is very, very important because they tell me that you have this association, Brazilian Association of Special Coffee, that is the BSCA. And then you have the Secafé, the Council of Exporters of Coffee from Brazil, where there are producers among these associates that are making this blend, let's say, of quality and sustainability of Brazilian coffee that is essential. I think it's something I didn't know it until this weekend that I started learning and reading my notes for today, but I didn't know this specifically. I think you should promote it always more abroad in terms of image, because you know that coffee is one of the items where abroad they look in terms of where are they produced, the origin. So this special coffee label, where you have quality and sustainability, this awareness of the Brazilian producers that hopefully will be always more, satisfies this new segment that is always growing, always more bigger, of consumers, high-level consumers, meaning in terms of tastes, of history, of wealth that are often the Western ones, but then the West goes, for example, and exports in China. So we export Ferraris and they learn what a Ferrari is and they buy a lot of Ferraris. So this could be also with the Brazilian coffee. In any case, this image of quality and sustainability within the producers that probably will go always more, I think is something that you should always more promote internally among the producers, among your public opinion, and especially abroad, among public opinion abroad, European one.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Ambassador. That is a good tip, and we have a lot to learn, I think, also from Italian culture, from being a culture that is able to transform a lot of things into new things, that is able also to innovate. And I think innovation is also in the DNA of both countries. Thank you so much. Grazie mille for coming here at the Campo Diplomático.
Obrigado, muito obrigado. É grande prazer. Abraço a todos os brasileiros, os italo-brasileiros. Thank you very much to you.
Thank you. E para você que nos acompanhou até agora, muito obrigado pela audiência. Falamos muito sobre as relações entre o Brasil, a Itália e também o lugar do Brasil no mundo em relação às organizações internacionais e também no potencial para exportação dos seus produtos e cooperação tecnológica com a Itália. Agradeço sua participação, sua presença aqui. Eu fico por aqui no Campo Diplomático e te aguardo na semana que vem.